Just make it work.
Hello Internet, more from my BMW Trail of Disaster. I started taking it to bits. I found a chipped tooth on the exhaust Vanos, so I got another one from eBay. I dropped the oil, checked the filter, and oh dear, coppery flakes, which Google tells me could be from the bearings. I had to purchase an engine support bar because you need to drop the front subframe to get the sump off. So I did that, dropped the sump, and I found a load of plastic in the sump, which is annoying. The vendor assured me that this had all been taken care of. It seems someone did change the guides and the chain, but left the junk from the previous one in the sump. So that was nice of them. I'd never have been driving it like that had I known, but I didn't. I'm terrible at buying cars, really. I don't really do test drives or check things out properly. No bar train or anything like that. I'm just like, take the money. Let's get this awkward encounter over with. Anywho, it is what it is. It seems that the plastic in the sump has blocked the oil pickup pipe, which is a common theme with these engines. A quick Google will reveal. Lowering the front subframe was a new experience for me. I got scared when I started reading about you might need helicoils, because it's aluminium and it might just destroy itself when you try and undo it, but it was actually fine. I managed to drop it off the jack into my own face, obviously, but mostly it was alright. Remove the oil pickup pipe. This engine has balancing shafts, which also have to be timed. More coppery flakes. I decided to change the front main seal as it was weeping, which turned out to be a bit of a mission. Amazingly, I didn't have the special tool. I did wonder whether or not I was wasting my time, as the engine might be toast anyway, but I thought as I'm in there, I'll try and stay positive and do a proper job so that when I sort the rest of it out, it'll be great or something. So on that basis, I also did the oil filter housing gasket, which had also been weeping. I had to buy the timing tools, which aren't too expensive, to lock the cams and the Vanos and the pin for the crank, which, you could use a drill bit for, but I bought the proper kit for the rest of it. Remove the tensioner, all the Vanos stuff. I'm just trying to read my own notes here. What on earth does that say? The guide retaining bolts. I got the chain out, and I hung them both over a bar so we could see old chain versus new chain, and there is about 5 mil of stretch in it. So it was definitely stretched. Got the cams back in. Retaining bolts, camshaft locking tool in. Tightened the Vanos back up, did all that lark. Tensioner back in, torqued the tensioner, which I had to move the water bottle to do because I couldn't get enough clearance. Tightened the crank bolt. What else did I do? I turned it over by hand a couple of times just to make sure I hadn't made a terrible boo-boo. Obviously then refitted the timing tools and checked it. Then I moved on to what I thought would be the easy bit of servicing, which was to change the spark plugs. That should be quick and easy, obviously. But it turned out my thin-walled socket was not thin-walled enough. So I had to convince my wife to hold an angle grinder in the back garden while I rubbed the socket up against it, which she was very pleased about. But I managed to shave enough off it to then get it to go in, change the plugs, managed to do that. It's always like the things that you think, oh, this will be quick. And obviously took forever because I had to manufacture a tool. Valve cover back on, coils in, fuel lines back on, everything torqued up. Oil pickup all cleaned up and put back on. New sump gasket. Obviously had to use the engine support bar and then drop the subframe again to get the sump back on. New oil and filter, new alternator belt. So at this point, I thought I would just put it back together and see how it is. I have no engine rebuilding experience. I did a couple of head gaskets on old Rovers back in the day, but that was about it. I don't have the facilities or the space to take an engine out, strip it, rebuild it, measure clearances, that kind of stuff. So I thought I'd just put it back together and see if now the oil starvation issue's sorted out, whether or not it would be alright. Which was wildly optimistic, obviously. So I did 500 miles. 2D06 is back, obviously. So I'm now thinking that can only be electrical. So I'm going to hardwire the MAF. I've ordered a 5-pin connector, both genders, so I can put that in after the MAF and still be able to disconnect it. So that would then take out the idea that the existing connector is dodgy, and obviously then I have to have a look at where that wiring goes to. But I'm now thinking that can only be electrical. But it turned out to be the least of my worries currently. So it sounded fine at idle. It pulled smoother than it ever has. Felt like a proper car momentarily, but there was still some clattering between sort of 2,000 and 3,000 RPM. So after a bit of time getting somebody else to rev it while I had a listen to it, I think that clattering was the start of rod knock. So I pulled the oil filter, and it's quite hard to see from the picture, but there was definitely glitter in there this time, noticeable. So obviously I could just, it was running, I could just ignore it and keep driving it, but a mechanical issue is never going to resolve itself. It's only going to get worse. So I decided to launch Operation Where Is It Coming From, as I could no longer try to just ignore it. So I dismantled it, dropped the oil, dismantled it again, took the sump off, and had a good look round the oil pump, balancing shafts, took that off. They seemed fine. And then I decided to bite the bullet and take the rod bearings out. And as you can see, they were not in great shape. So that's obviously where hopefully the vast majority of any premature engine wear has come from. So I'm going to change the rod bearings, as it's actually hopefully not that difficult with the engine still in. There is a case that the main bearings could also be toast as well, due to the oil starvation. But I can't change them without taking the engine out and splitting the block. I tried waggling the crankshaft in situ, which is obviously very scientific, but I couldn't feel any play, so I'm just going with the things that I can do something about, in the hope that that'll be enough. I'm consoling myself with the idea that the rod bearings are on the outer reaches of the crank in terms of oil supply, so they would go first. So hopefully the main bearings are okay. That's what I'm telling myself anyway. So I've ordered rod bearings and some new bolts, and when they turn up, I'll put it back together and have another go at trying to save it without spending any real money. Over and out.